very warm good morning to all of you. It is with immense pleasure that I would like to welcome one of the globe top leading experts of luxury, Dr. Daniel Langer with us. Welcome to India and LCBS, sir.
Thank you.
He is the CEO of Equite. I hope I pronounced it right.
Yeah, perfect. Wonderful.
A firm specializing in luxury, hospitality and lifestyle brand strategy. He is also a luxury professor at NYU, New York. Each year he inspires top managers by giving keynote presentations and masterclasses on luxury, pricing and multiverse. We are truly honored to have you here, sir, and give your valuable insights on the topic, what is true luxury? Without further delay, I would like to welcome him and get started.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. It's also my immense pleasure to be here. It's also thank you again for having me. This has been actually my dream for many years to be able to come to India. And I'm traveling so much that I have to be always a little bit choiceful where to go, because I don't have too much time a little bit that is without travel. Actually, the last probably like 18 or 20 weeks I've been traveling every week, every single week, and Europe, Asia, back to US, then in the US and so on. I will be here until Tuesday, then I have to go back to the US, then I will be home for one day, and then I have to go back to Paris. So I don't want to complain, my life is quite nice, but I always said, okay, once we have to come, and we have been talking for years now to make this happen. And then I was very lucky to have a client that is not so far away from here that asked me to come for 2 days, tomorrow and on Tuesday, to do a presentation. And actually, I always thought you guys are in Delhi, so I was even not sure that that we would make it. And then I found out it's actually like just 20 minutes away from the hotel. So we said, okay, we have to make it happen this time. So I'm really happy to be here, and also thank you for the super nice welcome. I don't think that I ever had such a nice welcome. It's cameras and everything. So
all done by the students.
Yeah.
Everything done, planned, executed to the T. Everything done by the students.
Wonderful. And I think also there's a few online that I see joining. So what I would like to do today is to make this a little bit less of a presentation, but much more as a discussion. And much more about maybe things that you are interested in. And maybe just to start with, maybe if each of you could tell me just in one sentence or so what you want to get out of this session. So to put you on the spot first. So who wants to start?
Ladies first. Yeah, go ahead, man. Go ahead.
By the end of the session, like the one main learning that the one main outcome that I would like is deep understanding of, since luxury is such a subjective term, so I want the deep understanding of the term luxury, what luxury is, and maybe when we enter into our careers, have a different approach to it, a different vision towards it, so we can have that new face to the, we can enter with a new face, new idea into the luxury.
Wonderful. Wonderful. My challenge will be that I can talk about this forever, and I think we have only an hour. So, but yeah, we will achieve that, I think. Super. Okay. Maybe just we put the microphone around.
So most of the time we always get this word like what is luxury, and many professionals like us, they always face the problem of how to define it. They don't get what it is. They always tag it with the high prices. Those are the attributes they don't understand as a general public. So I hope we all get to truly justify the whole meaning of luxury, what luxury is. So that we get the picture, and they also feel that they need luxury, how they can enrich their lifestyle.
So let me see this. Can we write on this?
Right on the glass one.
On the glass one. Do we have a pen?
Yeah, he'll
Okay. Just not to forget anything. So we had the term luxury. So what is luxury? And then maybe the question is, what is the role of price? Okay. Wonderful.
Continue. He's making
Yes,
some
sir.
notes.
Yeah. So first, I like your smile and your attire.
Thank you.
So my question is that obviously luxury is more into the marketing side rather than just the quality and the pricing of the product. I would like to know what is the key factor, the touch point where the audience they get convinced to buy our product. For example, I'm into perfume industry and I'm planning to get into the luxury sector. So what would be the touch point for me to cover my audience?
Okay. So in a sense, how to connect or how to create desire with the audience. Okay, great.
Yeah, sir. So I wanted to know more about what true luxury is
Uh-huh.
and all the aspect behind it.
Okay, true luxury. Let's find out if there's a fake luxury, so to speak. If there's a true luxury. Okay.
I would like to know like a deeper understanding and gain valuable insights post this lecture, and as well as what differentiates, like considering there are a lot of mass and premium brands as well. So what is that one differentiating factor? What makes it exclusive?
What is the differentiating factor? Okay.
Yeah, so like I would like to know, like we are Indians and we are very culturally rich, you can say. So like how do we bring that into luxury, our culture into the luxury sector?
Culture. So I put it here. Role of culture.
So if I have my own brand, so
Yeah.
basically I'll start it with in a very small form, but I definitely want to make that a luxury brand. So what are the touch points that I can reach to the audience and the market through which I can gain that reputation of my brand?
Okay, super. And I don't have to go so deep. So what are the touch points? Okay.
So let's say everyone has a different definition for luxury. You know,
Uh-huh.
for some it might be comfort, some it's high price.
Yeah.
So again, what is true luxury? And talking about the brand that shit, like even I want to build my own brand. So how can we, cultivate a brand into the more luxury sector and work towards it?
So, how to position a brand in luxury? Wonderful.
And online.
Yeah.
Online, do you have any questions you want answers to?
So I do have a question.
One at a time. Soumya, you can go first.
Okay. So how much personal branding is important for a luxury profession? We can see luxury from the point of view of consumer, but I want to know luxury from the point of view of a professional who is working there.
Okay. The professional view. Okay.
Janani, you can go next.
Yes, sir. So, like, when you're planning to start a business after this course or something like that, so how we can thrive in luxury field, what all should we know, and then how we can stay in the business.
Okay. So I understood how to thrive in luxury and how to basically make a brand a success. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay. Wonderful.
Yeah.
Success in luxury. Okay.
Anyone else?
Anyone else?
Sir, I'd like to ask one question from you.
Go ahead, Rishabh.
Sir, can you share your insights from your research on luxury brand failure and what lessons we can learn from it?
Okay. This were lessons from
Failure.
failure. Oh, that's great. Yeah, I loved it. Mm-hmm.
Prisha, you want to ask any question?
Prisha, Rashmi?
No,
Okay.
Ask Rashmi if she wants.
Rashmi ma'am, you have any questions?
No.
no.
Okay.
You guys already asked me.
Okay.
Okay, perfect.
Okay, wonderful. So we have, I love the question. So it's fundamentally, it's, what is success in luxury, but also what are failures? How to position a brand, what are the touch points, role of culture, what is luxury, the role of price, how to create desire with the audience, what is true luxury, and what are the differentiating factors. So I think this is all fascinating, and it's actually also a bit what I was, when I was coming here, what I was thinking to discuss with you. So it's perfect. I had a couple of presentations over the last 2-3 weeks that go pretty much into that direction. And the question I would say the question I get most often is really, what is luxury all about? What is this term? And we spoke also here somewhere, where was this, about price. And I think that one of the biggest misconceptions in my point of view is to confuse luxury with a price point. So of course luxuries, or every product has a price point, but it's quite dangerous to think luxury always has to be expensive. So I don't know if any one of you has been at the Ambani wedding. Anyone? No? A friend of mine actually was invited.
My brother was invited.
Oh, wonderful. What did he say?
So yeah, it was nice. Actually, he was with the members. Actually, he was
Mm.
doing the rituals for them actually. So yeah, he had a good time. So very fascinating.
Yeah.
Very overwhelming.
तुमने बताया नहीं वीडियो कॉल नहीं पूरा लेक्चर यार.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
it was a good time he spent over there.
Yeah.
So he's always there with the Ambanis every time they do any of the functions.
So I think that wedding is a quite interesting one, for example. So I don't know. I'm pretty sure there's lots of myths around that, and I don't know that anyone really knows the real numbers. But I heard something that the investment for that kind of more official part was very close to $1 billion, plus minus somehow. And I have a good friend of mine. He is the son of Stefano Ricci, the fashion designer, and he and his brother were invited. And we were just texting. And he said, "I'm in India," and then he said, "Ambani wedding," with a smile. And that is something fascinating, because I was then thinking, you can now say $1 billion is a heck of a lot of money for a wedding. And we can say, is this, waste, so to speak, if someone just has too much money and is spending it? There can be all kind of questions when something so extreme comes. I don't think that there was ever an event that was so expensive, organized by a private person, than that one. But at the same time, the question is, through that wedding, he is basically now known everywhere in the world by practically everyone. If my friends, the Richies go there, then probably 100 other Stefano Richies will also go there. So this means that within a few weeks they managed to get not only in front of everyone, but being really in front and center of the whole world. So the question is, how much payback does this bring over time? And I'm not suggesting that we have to do everything we do in a transactional way. It's just interesting because we can, if we basically take price point, we can say this is maybe a little bit extreme. But the question is, maybe this was a relatively cheap investment for what can come out of it. And the only thing why I mention it is we have to be always very careful when we speak about prices and when we speak about value of something, because very often there's a confusion about this. I'm going to borrow one of these bottles, and let's take this bottle as an example. So how much is this bottle in rupees, more or less?
10 rupees.
10 rupees? Okay. So if I wanted to, if I would come in here with like all these bottles and would try to sell them to you, and I would tell you this is 1,000 rupees. How many of you would buy this bottle?
None of us.
Yeah, you don't seem very convinced. No, 1,000 you would not pay? No. Okay. I'm actually not very successful trying to sell these water bottles because I'm always trying to sell these bottles to my audiences. And actually, in in Chicago on Monday, actually I had one person who actually said, "Oh, I give you $10 for that." And I said, "Okay, my lucky day." Never ever had anyone wanting to pay. So why did you all say immediately no to my proposition? Why did you say no?
Because we know the brand and we know the monetary value of water in India.
Mm-hmm.
We know the cost. It's available and we know the cost of it.
You know the cost, you know the brand. So let's say if I came with, if I did something like this, let me see if I can make this work. Well, this actually, these guys actually are not, they're quite good in putting their logo.
It's sticky, the brand is sticky.
It's a sticky brand, yeah. So let's say if I did this, and so we erase our memory for a moment and make that nothing happen, and I came now with this bottle and made the same proposition and said, let's say, 1,000 rupiah. Does anything change? Under a different brand name, so to speak. Why? And again, you made this decision quite fast. I saw every one of you shaking heads and looking at me like an alien is talking. So to speak, why did you not want to buy this for that price point? And now we eliminate the brand.
So I want to know what's so special about it for me to buy it for 1,000 rupees.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so you want to know. And I did not tell you what it is. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Because I know that I would get alternatives to it at a better price, providing me the same satisfaction that the water is providing it to me.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah.
Every brand holds its value to it. So if I get something like there are two water bottles, like one is Himalaya and one is Bisleri. So we know the price of Himalaya is somewhere around 90 to 100 rupees. And when we talk about Bisleri, it's just for 10. So that's the reason, that's the brand value that it holds for itself, and that's why I would not buy it.
Mm-hmm. But maybe let's go a little bit back to the moment when you said no, because you all were very fast doing this. How could you come to this fast decision? What do you think?
Because of the bottle's presentation, I would say it's not that appealing. It doesn't have a good aesthetics for me to get convinced to pay 1,000 rupees for the bottle.
Okay, so not very convincing. Yeah, the bottle not very appealing. But again, let's observe ourselves. Let's observe our brains. Was it difficult to take this decision?
No.
No.
And it was practically immediate. And I can guarantee you that, and this is quite critical for answering all these questions that you see here. That we have this wonderful machines here, our brains, and the way the brain works is actually truly fascinating. If you have not read the book, there is a book called Thinking Fast and Slow from a psychologist called Kahneman. And if you have not read it, I really recommend you reading that. That book literally changed my life in many ways, and understanding how the way we think works and how the brain works. So it's Thinking Fast and Slow. So what you all did was you were using your fast brain in evaluating the situation. And we actually, as humans, we use the fast brain probably like 99% of all the time. And to a point where I think even Kahneman in his book asked the question, can we even speak about free will if our brains basically are almost on autopilot? And so the reason why we use the fast brain is, and I maybe should define the two systems. So there's one system, they call it system 1, that is the fast brain, and system 2 is the reasoning, the brain that uses the reasoning. So for reasoning, we have to use a lot of energy, and so we typically don't do reasoning unless we need to. So if I put a mathematical problem there, if I would say, where's the pen? If I would say, for example, times 54, and I want now the result, you are not being able to do this with your fast brain. At least most of you. There are some, math wizards that can do this, but most of the people would need to now take a step back. We now have to analyze the situation really, have to run some calculations and so on. So and you can already see that this takes a lot of effort. This takes a lot of effort and takes a lot of time. And the way how we are wired fundamentally is about survival. And a good friend of mine, she's a psychologist, and she wrote a doctoral thesis about risk, and basically she sees life through the lens of risk. And she works for BMW, and she's actually the person who is advising the designers of BMW and Rolls-Royce and giving them basically the kind of scenario in which to work. And she basically says everything in life is risk, and we always evaluate whether it's risky to invest in something like this. Shall we do it? Shall we not do it? And even when you see a person, you basically say, should I approach this person or should I run away from this person, fundamentally? And so this is what they call fight and flight. And and this is why our brains are programmed. Our brains are programmed to recognize a pattern. And when the brain recognizes a pattern, then it says, wait a minute, this looks like a lion. The lion bit me last time, so next time I see something like this, I should run. Yeah? Or it looks like a cat, and the cat was nice last time, so I should not run. So this is how our brain works. And this is basically the system 1, the fast brain, that governs most of the time. So the tricky thing now is, first of all, you will not realize which brain you use, whether you use the fast or slow. It's by default. The other thing is that the fast brain has a protection mechanism built in that almost prevents you from overriding decisions that it took. So if the fast brain takes a decision, good luck overriding it. So if you saw this, and then I would almost argue, independent of the brand, if I would have come in and I would have taken the brand name before, you would have also rejected my proposition of the 1,000 rupee. Yeah. And the reason now is you would see this, and we have seen things like this before, and they look like water bottles. And then we have somehow an idea of the price. Even if we don't necessarily know the precise price, we have an idea of the value that it has. And if we've seen that, things like this cost, as you said, maybe between 10 rupee and maybe 50 rupee, depending where you buy it, and so on, then if my proposition would have been somewhere between 10 and 50, you probably would have said yes. But now, because I asked you for 1,000, you said no. And you can hardly override it. So this is basically how we work how our brain normally works. So now the question is, I don't have it with me right now, but if you want to look it up, there's a water bottle from Chanel. And maybe some of you have seen it. So Chanel launched this bottle about 2.5 years ago when they celebrated 100 years of Chanel No. 5. So this bottle is a little bit bigger than this. I would say maybe twice the size of this. It's a glass bottle. If I had it in my hands right now and would put it around and you would not see the brand name, I guarantee you would be disappointed. It's very thin glass. Very, very thin glass. And then there's basically like a rubber around it, and it says No. 5 Chanel L'Eau. So the fascinating thing is, we basically rejected 1,000 rupees. So they sold it for, and this might be similar in terms of price, they sold it for $100 US. Is 100 US 1,000 rupees, roughly?
About.
Yeah, so they sold it for about 1,000 rupees. So now we all rejected this for 1,000 rupees. They sell a water bottle for 1,000 and people went crazy. They went to all the Chanel stores worldwide and wanted to buy this bottle. It was sold out within a few days. The cool thing is Chanel didn't even bother to put water in there. They sell you the empty bottle. These at least, they put water. So they basically just give you the vessel and it says No. 5 Chanel. So then I started to use this example, and then a client said, Daniel, you always use the example, you should have the bottle. So they bought the bottle for me on StockX for $400 US. So this is now I think really fascinating. Now we get into this. So we have here a bottle with water, and probably otherwise it would not be served here. Probably pretty good water, and we reject anything more than 10, and then someone else can come and sell us an empty bottle for 1,000. Why? And people go crazy. They didn't even wait. They saw this and said, oh shit, I need to go to Chanel and buy this now.
It's not the value of the bottle or the product, it's the value of the brand that holds.
Mm-hmm.
It's about if I'm carrying a Chanel bag or a Chanel bottle, that will give a different impact on somebody else who is seeing me having the water in a normal distillery water and Michelin.
So now we're getting closer. So now we said it's the value of the brand. So now let's discuss a little bit. What is the value of the brand? So now we understand. Let's say, I would say as a concept, I think we can all agree on that. But now I want to challenge you a little bit. Because if we are unwilling to pay 1,000 for this, but we are willing to pay 1,000 for that, so something changed. And yes, I agree with you, there's a brand that came in, but still, I would almost argue, even if we take emotional decisions, there's a logic behind the decision. So what is the logic? Why is this brand more valuable? What does this brand provides what this brand does not provide?
The symbolic value, the status, right?
The status
In carrying the Chanel water bottle or carrying a Chanel bag, and inside the Chanel bag we have a Chanel water bottle.
So let's use the word status. So what is status?
Value of a person, value of a person, or
For someone to say that they have arrived in life.
Yeah. So let's say if I say I have a neighbor who's collecting cars, so he has probably like 20 cars, some Ferraris, Lamborghinis, a super nice collection. So if I say my neighbor buys all these cars because of status, is this a nice statement that I'd say to him or not so nice statement? Yeah. So you can see there is a bit of status is problematic as a word because there is judgment in there. And this is when I started my journey into luxury. I was struggling with this word. And I was struggling to accept that word because I felt that status can be misleading. Because status is a little bit almost like the word luxury is a bit of a catch-all. We use the word and say, yeah, this is about status, but again, someone, here now we are willing to pay 100x more, 100 times more. And I still want to know why are we jumping and before we were, maybe even for 20 rupiah we would have bought it. And then suddenly our brain allows us to say this is worth 100. So what is the value of that? So think beyond status. What do we pay the price for?
I feel it's what they are targeting is the desire part. They are going beyond the need. They feel the innovation that it is something I desire, not I need it. That is something what is lying there.
Also here I would be challenging you a little bit. And the question is because sometimes luxury is defined as something we don't need. And I don't know. Maybe it's something we need. Otherwise, I always like to say follow the money. If you're willing to pay 100 times more for a product category than for another one, maybe you need it. In some ways, I don't know. But it's interesting that we are willing to pay for some products incredible amount, where for other products we just don't want that. So maybe this is maybe we don't need this, and maybe we need this. Yeah.
I believe it's the emotion that is being sold here because they launched the bottle as a the 100 years celebration. So there's a touch point to that as an emotion. Like people know that Chanel, they create like exclusive products, and they're putting a sort of emotion that we are celebrating our brand's 100th year, and as a token of love or something, we are launching this product. And I believe the quantity should be like between 100 because it's the year's target. So I believe that's the emotion which is being sold rather than the product.
Okay, so let's discover emotion a little bit. What kind of emotion do we buy?
A fear that they may not get the product if it is like less than 100. I need to have the one. I need to have one of them. So that kind of a desire.
Okay, why? Why do we want to have that?
Because I believe luxury.
I'm a pain in the butt. I always ask the why. I always ask the next question and the next question. But we need to understand. If you want to understand what this is, then this is the journey we have to take. I can tell you, it took me 3 years to understand. I was writing my doctoral thesis, and I had to push back and push back and push back because I couldn't answer this question. Why the 100x more?
Because they want to stand
10x more I can explain, with quality and so on. But 100x, 1000x, 10,000x, $1 billion for a wedding. When for most people, $1 million is a lot. Yeah. So, what are we buying? We are buying something. And I would challenge you a little bit and say, yes, there is a value of the brand for sure, but the brand had to gain that value over time, and basically, yes, we buy into a brand, but I would say we buy into something bigger than the brand, into something that the brand signals. The brand is basically sending you a signal, but the signal comes with certain things. What does it come with?
Is it satisfaction? If we are buying self-satisfaction, if I have the Chanel water, I am satisfied.
Yeah,
Yes, I have it.
So satisfaction could be one thing, okay?
Satisfaction.
Yeah, satisfaction could be one thing. What else? What else could we buy?
Sense of belonging.
Sense of belonging, yeah. What else could we buy?
Brand history maybe?
Maybe the history.
Brand history because it holds emotion to that as well. Because as we think about Coco Chanel, the thoughts that she gave, the quotes that she have provided us to the luxury field. So yeah, I guess that's the thing that would be touched.
Yeah, maybe history, yeah. So,
exclusivity in the craftsmanship when you talk about it, because it's only made, like there are 100 bottles, I'm one of those 100 people who has that bottle. It could be that as well.
Okay, so let me lift the veil a little bit and tell you what we actually buy. And let's start with this. I'm grateful for your answer, exclusivity and craftsmanship, because this is the number one answer I always get. Everyone says luxury is about craftsmanship and quality and exclusivity and expertise. And I always say it's bullshit. So forget that. Forget that. You need to have, or I should put it differently. So when you decide to purchase something in luxury, you typically expect quality and craftsmanship and expertise. It's the minimum expected product. I actually would be always disappointed if I don't get it. But the premium that we pay for that is relatively limited. You know, how good can I make this water? You know, I can filter this now 50 times, and then I can put it under the moonlight, you know, and for 5 nights, and then I have, I don't know, maybe a shaman running around it and dancing, and so you can create a story and say, okay, then we fill it, and then therefore it tastes better, but if we basically say how much would we really pay more for that, and you can see that if you go to the supermarket, you know, you see practically every product category, there are more the entry-level products, and then there are more the premium products. And this was, I think, also one of your questions in how do we differentiate that. And typically you find 2x, you know, sometimes 3x, but typically it's more percentages. 10% more, 20% more, 50% more or so, but not much more. Here we speak about 100x. So there must be a third component, and it's typically not on product. So when you speak about product, and let me use this board. We have typically two value components of normal products. We have functional and we have emotional value component. Practically every brand has that. The emotional one is the design. So if we basically now decompose this and take a lot of time, and we really observe this, you see here like waves. Bless you. So there was some kind of designer that had an idea here of that. Then there's a shape of the bottle, and so on. You have the haptics. Then you have the color and the brand name that we took off. So there's probably, if we really go deep, we find 20, 30 different elements that we can either qualify as functional elements. For example, I can turn this around and mysteriously the water stays inside, So there's a lot of functional components and some emotional components. And they all combined go into what more or less a value. We translate them in our brain. So now I'm trying to bring you all these things together. So now you see something that looks like this. Your brain has seen something similar, and then your brain comes up with what is a fair value for that. And the brain then says, this is 10 rupiah. Fair value for something that looks like this. And now we have to be very careful because our brain can also trick us. Because water is a category that we all know pretty well. So you will not have a big margin of error. But for example, I have an issue with my fridge at the house, and so I have to replace my fridge. And I thought if you had asked me what my fridge would cost, I would have told you $4,000. So, and then I found out my fridge actually cost $15,000. So, slight mistake that I did. So why did I not know the price of my fridge? Answer is very simple. I didn't buy it. It came with the house, so to speak. When I bought my house, the fridge was built in the kitchen. So I never bought a fridge in my life, ever. All houses I moved in, whether I bought them or rented, all came with a kitchen and all came with a fridge. So I have no idea about this category, price-wise. So now, but because we have this fast brain, my brain still told me a price. And now I'm convinced myself about that price. And now if you are trying to sell me something, let's say you are the brand that wants to sell me the luxury fridge, you have to run against those notions that are in my mind. So if I think 4, but the real price is 15, now there's a challenge. Because I think the value, functional and emotional, is 4. And you tell me it's 15. And then if I really need it, and then then I have to basically convince myself that maybe I was completely wrong, but I will always remember that number. So our brain sometimes plays tricks with us, but it typically attributes relatively well a specific value to a specific category. So you have a feeling what a car costs. You have a feeling what a coffee costs. And whether you go to coffee shop A, B, or C, at least you have a suspicion what it could be. If you see a restaurant, you will not expect now 10 or 20 times the price of something else unless, the restaurant looks completely different. If it looks similar to other restaurants you went, you will expect a relatively fair value for that. If you have been in a hotel and you paid more or less in a specific city a specific number, and you go back to that same city, you have a quite good understanding what to expect from a hotel. Yeah? I was in New York City the last 2 days. New York City is pretty pricey. I could actually not find last week any hotel below $1,000. It's impossible. It was Comic-Con, so all the comic guys were crazy and invaded the city. All hotels were booked. But I know that $1,000 for New York City is also pricey, but it's rather, I would say, within the normal range at some points in time. In other cities would be outrageous. In other cities you would never pay that. Yeah? Because you know that in this city is always like $200 or $100 or $50, wherever we are in the world. So we have a quite good understanding of that. And still there are brands and products and offers that can do 100x more. So your quality and craftsmanship is in here. What you said before. And because we attribute the value rather to a category, plus minus, the quality and craftsmanship is more or less irrelevant in the overall value perception of a luxury item. It's built in, it is certainly in there, it's important for the signal, but for the valuation of our brain, it's just expected. So there must be something different. And honestly, I had no idea what it was. And so I came up with a proxy and I called it ALV. And I called this ALV added luxury value, for lack of better words. I had no idea what it was. But I kind of thought, a little bit like, for those of you who like the universe or so, I kind of thought it's a little bit like the dark matter in the universe. There's a quite big assumption that it's there, but we don't know how to measure it. We don't know what it is. And this is the same with luxury. I know the value is there. I get 100x. I get the desirability, but we still don't know 100% what it is. Yes, we may say status, remember, but we also saw this how problematic status is. We said emotion, but which emotion? So then I had an idea and I thought I could measure this actually by comparing two scenarios. And the scenarios where, for example, we took a woman, we put her in a Bentley, and we took a photograph of the woman. And then we photoshopped the same woman into a Volkswagen. And we made sure that everything is the same, other than the car. And then we did the same with, for example, Chanel. We had a woman that was wearing a Chanel dress. And then we had a second photograph, and we said the dress is from H&M. Nothing else changed. Or we had a guy with a Patek Philippe, and then we had a guy with a Swatch watch, and so on and so forth. Different scenarios. I did the study in Japan, China, France, Germany, and US because I wanted to filter out cultural biases. I wanted to make sure that there is not basically maybe one society, one area sees things differently. Different age groups, different income levels, from people with very little wealth to people that are very wealthy or very high income. The results changed my life. I would not be here today. Probably we would never have met without those results, because I was so shocked seeing those results. I didn't expect them. We made sure that no one knew that this is about luxury, because if you say luxury and you start measuring, there's so much sociability biases, you can almost forget the measurement. So we basically said we are from the psychology department of the university, we just have a few questions about this person. And people only saw one. So there was basically one set of people who would evaluate one scenario, the other set of people would evaluate the other scenario. They didn't know that the other scenario existed. So now let's take the woman in the Volkswagen versus the woman in the Bentley. And the other results were directionally the same. There were a couple of dimensions that came out. So for example, we asked questions like, is the person beautiful? Just wanted to know, is she attractive? And so on and so forth. We asked, is the person intelligent? And so it was just wild hypothesis. I just had an idea of many things, and I thought, what if? What if the person feels, or we see the person as more attractive? The results literally changed my life, as I said. So what we could show is that when you buy a luxury, fundamentally the perception, or I should say it differently because we want to be more precise in this. So if we basically see a person associated with luxury, then we find the person significantly more attractive. And if I say significantly more attractive, think significantly. Let's say ugly and beautiful, to be a little bit provocative. Then you see stupid and intelligent, so to speak. So interestingly, in one car, we don't think too much about the person, intelligence-wise or expertise-wise. In the other car, yes, wow. This person, we believe she can play the piano, she can do all these kind of things. Probably went to a fantastic school. Isn't this interesting? Just because someone wears a bag Suddenly we make all these kind of associations. Then we also saw, and this is for me one of the most fascinating dimensions, what I call social protection. People feel more protected. And when they feel more protected, they dare to do more. This I found so super fascinating. So we asked, for example, questions like, could this person misbehave and we would forgive her? And in the Bentley, yes, absolutely. She can misbehave, we forgive her. In the Volkswagen, forget. She misbehaves, we don't forgive her. It's interesting, huh? And then we had questions around, how interesting is the life? Do you dare to do new things all the time? Do you try to do new things from time to time? And people said, yeah, this person actually has a life where she tries new things all the time. So, and if you now think that we are 99% in our brain on this kind of first scenario with the fast brain, also our lives, in a sense, for many people, lives just pass by. There's so much routine. You go in the car, you drive to work, you come back home, and repeat. And then the years go by. So we all look for things that are escapes from this reality that many people face, that is routine, routine, routine. And so if you have now a product that actually, or a brand that inspires you to do new things, there's value in there. If you have a brand that makes you feel more attractive, there's value in there. If there's a brand that actually tells you these things, it's basically almost like a superpower that you buy. And so very often I call a luxury purchase a purchase that fundamentally is driven by the anticipation of a significant perception shift in a positive way, significant perception shift. And I would say, this is why I have a little bit the issue with status, because yes, status could play a role, because we are social animals. And there were no differences in these behaviors. And at that time, when I did the study for the first time, China was still a developing country at that time. And there was not really, for many, many years, kind of really a luxury sector. It was very new to most people in China. And the results were exactly the same. There was no difference. So I expected really significant differences between regions. And to me, this comes to the question, do we need luxury? I think yes. Because if it's consistent all over the world, whether a society is already very developed with a very high share of luxury, and at that time Japan was the #1 country. This is why I did this also in Japan for luxury. And so you had basically Japan as the top country for luxury, and at that time China as the absolute developing country for luxury, which today is almost reversed roles, but both behave in the same way. You can ask yourself questions, and I would say if you observe people with more budget, typically comes more luxury consumption. Look at a lot of the billionaires, how their lifestyle is with yachts, planes, and so on. And sometimes plane number 2, plane number 3, car number 20, car number 30, which again, on the first glance, maybe doesn't make so much sense. But when you think about these effects, that we actually feel better, we actually feel more attractive, we feel more intelligent, we want to break out. And I would say this is what any human wants to do. Actually, we can start understanding why we pay those premiums. And if you now combine this with the research of my friend, the psychology of risk and risk awareness, if I feel more attractive and also I feel more intelligent, I start mitigate social risks. And if I feel more protected, I also start mitigating risks. And if I can start mitigating risks, my chances in the society, so to speak, increases. And we are all, again, social animals. So if one purchase of a Chanel water bottle can help us to get there, why wouldn't we do that? It makes it's a logical choice. It's almost a choice that is almost inevitable. So now the question is, which kind of brands participate in that? And there comes a factor of role of culture. So of course, not every brand has the same meaning in every place. Not every ritual has the same meanings. For example, what was the first question I had is like the ritual when I came in the school, what kind of ritual is this? Because I didn't know that. So therefore, in different cultures, you have different rituals, different things, different brands that we aspire to, different, environments, different celebrities, different things that we do, sometimes even different routines. And also certain brands have different meanings in different cultures. So for example, maybe you hear this from my accent, so I am half German, and I could never get really rid of my German accent, although I live in the US now. But for example, in Germany, Ferrari has a terrible image. It's a terrible image. Because the people who drive Ferraris in Germany typically have, red light establishments. Yeah, I don't know a better word to say that. Yeah, but it's basically, if you're underworld, you're like a gangster, you drive a Ferrari. I've almost never seen a reputable person driving a Ferrari there. It just doesn't exist. And because this brand is so much bought by underworld people, everyone else doesn't really want to be associated with this. And if you drive in one Ferrari, you immediately say underworld. In Germany. So now I lived also a few years in Japan, and Japan is the opposite. In Japan, they love the engineering, they love the engines, they love the story of it. So for example, I had a neighbor in Japan, and everyone adored the guy. And every time when he came with his Ferrari out of his garage, everyone was saying, wow, this is a cool guy. And it's lovely, and he loves this thing, and look how happy he is. In Germany, the opposite. The guy would come with the Ferrari, and then people would say, this guy, he probably didn't pay his taxes. Maybe we actually asked the tax authorities to investigate. You absolutely don't want to be associated with that. And in very similar, if you take one thing, for example, in Germany, on cars, it's very typical to make debadging. So you take the badge off of the car. So no one will ever show which kind of model you drive. And so you may have a Mercedes S-Class, maybe the AMG version, but the first thing you ask is get rid of the AMG thing. Because what will the people in my company think? Maybe then everyone say, oh, he makes too much money, or he makes this. It's a very judgmental society where everyone judges everyone else. So people still love to indulge in this, but they know this comes as a cost. So you try to be as down to earth as possible, so to speak. So then I remember when I moved to the US, was the opposite. I come into I drive I was running in my former company, the US business, and I rewarded myself with my fanciest company car I ever had. And then I thought, I would be the king of the parking lot, so to speak. And then I drive in, and then everyone drives Mercedes S-Classes. And I said, where are we here? Or Hummers, or all these things. And there's a society where people don't have an issue with this. And if they buy the S-Class, then they will put the AMG, whatever. And now in my car, if I open the door, I have a projector that projects the brand name on the floor. So it's almost the opposite, where you want to be as loud as possible on that. It's a different society. And each society has a bit different rules, where certain brands may be different. So always think that this is the role of culture, is that you have to connect the brand and make it culturally relevant. And there is, so basically, let's try to see. So luxury, so the way how I define luxury is the ability of a brand, mostly it's brands, but it can also be a person, can be a business, the ability to create extreme value. So, and why extreme value? Because think about this value proposition of the category value, functional and emotional. Practically, if you take the average of all offers that are in a category, the majority gravitates around the category average. And then there's few brands that break out in a dramatic way and create something of extreme value. So there's typically a non-linearity when you observe the value proposition within luxury. So we have to do value in an extreme fashion. And this means you have to be very clear what this value proposition is. And so now I told you about 5 minutes or 10 minutes ago that we become more attractive, we become more intelligent, and so on and so forth. So these are value drivers. So the more you can make the brand about the person that buys it and not about yourself as the company, the more value you create. So therefore, the critical factor to create luxury is storytelling. And practically all luxury brands, all items, take the Birkin bag and so on, they somehow created a story. They have a very interesting story, a unique story. And the more unique the story is, and the more the story is about a person, and it is about emotions of a person, the more value you create. And it's very interesting, and therefore I'm very grateful about the question about failure in luxury. So for example, you probably all know Gucci. How would you describe Gucci in the last 2 years from your own observation? This year, last year? Anyone a big Gucci fan still? Okay.
I feel the brand management, the executive and the senior management has been too frequent in their senior managements. They have been changing too frequently, and the brand management has been not that up to that par where other brands are standing right now currently. I feel there's a failure in the executional part.
So Gucci is a fascinating case, and I have used Gucci over the years as some years as the example of the best in class, and sometimes of the worst in class. And right now, my verdict is they're the worst in class almost. I think what happened the last 2 years probably at some point will be seen as the biggest mismanagement of a brand ever in history. These guys are now, I think, the 7th consecutive quarter or so negative, significantly double digit, and every quarter is worse. Last quarter was minus 20%. So this is a roughly 10 billion brand, and so if they decline every quarter 15 to 20% over 2 years, it's 3-4 billion top line that is gone. We speak about astronomical declines, not just as small declines. And so, so what did Gucci do well and not so well? So Gucci was kind of almost bankrupt when Tom Ford came in the beginning of the 2000s. And Tom Ford reinvigorated the brand and made the brand very sexy. And the sexiness of Tom Ford fundamentally was built on a fundamental story of this brand about freedom of self-expression. So Tom Ford interpreted it in a very sexy way, but it was all about if you were wearing Gucci, you were making a statement of freedom of self-expression. It was very, very clear at that time. And it was a very provocative brand that took risks. You know, if you go back in memory lane, the G-string became super popular at that time. And the advertising was so provocative that many publications, including Vogue, banned Gucci. So Gucci advertising in many cases was not even allowed to be shown. But this was all because they were self-confident and, in a sense, provocative, over the top, but we're basically saying to people, you buy Gucci as an expression of who you are and who you want to be, and who cares what other people think. So then when Tom Ford left, the successor of Tom Ford thought maybe the brand went a little bit too far, too sexy. Also, she felt she was a woman. She felt that maybe we have to recalibrate a little bit. It's different times, and so they focused on craftsmanship and quality. This is why I said, be careful with craftsmanship and quality. So they refocused on that. They said, okay, now Gucci is going to be just very elegant. Brand went like this, but like a rocket ship, 5 or 6 years not minus. And then everyone was wondering, why is she not fired? And then people found out because she had an affair with the CEO of Gucci, and then at some point they fired both. And then they brought Alessandro Michele in a few years, this was 2015, and then Gucci went up again. And when Alessandro Michele came to Gucci, he reinvented, in a sense, Ford's Gucci, but in a different way. It was not anymore this overt sexiness, but it was still, everything was over the top, theatric, and again, people who were expressing their own individuality through the brand. So Tom Ford and Michele basically did the same thing. The same storytelling was freedom of self-expression. If you go on Instagram today, and I didn't check in the last week, so maybe they changed, but I doubt. If you go on Instagram Gucci today, you only see bought celebrities showing a bag, and it's all about product and quality and craftsmanship. And the brand is like this. No one cares. Because what they bought into an emotion. They bought into the idea of freedom of self-expression. This was what the brand fundamentally is about. So if you sell me, say, Daniel, you know, if you wear the Gucci belt, you can be a little bit like a rebel. And maybe, you know, because now today you're in a business school, you have to wear this suit and so on. But fundamentally, maybe this belt or whatever item now gives me this idea that, yes, I'm maybe this rebel inside, although I have to wear the suit. This is what makes then such a brand storytelling so attractive. And the best brands in the world always have a story that is connected fundamentally to the clients. If you think about Rolex, Rolex is a brand about obsession in bettering yourself. It's all. If you read the Rolex brand story, the founder of Rolex, he always wanted the watches to be better and better and better. And if you go over decades, for example, a good friend of mine is a watch collector and he buys lots of vintage Rolexes. Their bracelets 20, 30 years ago were not as sturdy as they are today. And this actually attracts a lot of people now buying a vintage Rolex, because some people say they're so perfect today that they also lose a little bit like almost something human-like that the old ones had, that were, you know, rattling a little bit and so on. They were not as perfect as they were, because they were as perfect as they could make that at that time. But then, you know, if you can make it better, you will make it better in the future. And the whole story is about that. All brand ambassadors of Rolex are about that. If you think about Roger Federer or Cameron, also, they are all people who are never stopping, but always basically trying to make things better. So they create like an ecosystem where everything is about bettering yourself. And this is why many people, when they have a great achievement in their life, then say, okay, as a celebration to myself or to my kids or graduation or whatever special moment which we worked hard to get, now it's a symbol of achievement. Because this is what the brand is about. And Patek Philippe, for example, is much more about a legacy and not so much about the achievement. And so each brand has their own role. And some brands are really good in storytelling and other brands are not. And I can basically predict the success of a brand on the quality of storytelling. And the better basically the stories are, the more unique they are, but also the more they are connected to the emotional world of the clients. Then you create value. Because in the end, you know, I'm not going to pay 100 or 1,000 rupiah for this if this is detached to my emotions. If this is just a product, then I'm going to buy the value of the category. But if, like in the case of the Chanel water bottle, if now the brand can give me something that actually increases the way how I see myself, that's almost priceless. And this is why we pay the premiums. This is why suddenly now we pay 100x. So it's all about us. It's all really about us. So the secret really is you have to tell a story and you have to make it about the clients. Most brands, if you go on the About Us section, there's always a good starting point, and then you go on their Instagram and TikTok, most brands talk about themselves. And it's boring. No one wants to hear that. We only want to hear if it's relevant to us. So if Louis Vuitton would basically just say, we build the best trunks in the world, quality, craftsmanship, blah, 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 the brand would be dead today. It would never be where they are. So they don't do that. They don't talk about quality, almost ever. It's interesting. It's assumed, but they don't talk about it. They talk about the art of travel. They talk about the romance of travel, about the adventures of travel. This is why you see them now opening a hotel on Champs-Élysées, and why you see them opening airport lounges all over the world, because it's a travel brand. Fundamentally, it's about travel. Yeah, and so we have to basically always make it about the customer and tell a story. Of course, quality and so on has to be there. There has to be something unique also in the product, but it has to be always connected to something else. You know, I tell you, I was in Geneva at the Watches and Wonders, at the watch show. And I had a couple of invitations by some watch brands. So I go, let's say, I meet CEO 1. Hi, Daniel, how are you? Blah, blah, blah. We're so happy to have you here, and I want to show you these watches, and you will be convinced about our quality and craftsmanship. Okay, I get to go to the next booth. So great that you're here. We can't wait that you understand our quality and craftsmanship. So I heard the story before. Now I go to booth number 3, and they talk about quality and craftsmanship. I start to get boring. Everyone talks about quality and craftsmanship. Give me something I've never heard before. And then I went to a brand that I never had in top of mind. I heard about them, but they were not top of mind, Roger Dubois. So, and when I went to that booth, they had an idea and they called it Hyperlife. And they said, these are watches for people with a hyper life. I said, this is me. And they said, because they said all our clients they travel like crazy, they are always active, they are always, and so therefore they have like watches with tourbillons and all kind of things that are made for people with a hyper life. I almost bought a watch on that day. And that was the only brand that I visited that really spoke to me. And yes, they of course, hopefully they have good quality and craftsmanship. But what resonated with me was the story that they said, we are building watches for people with a hyper life. Hyper watch for people with a hyper life. That I could remember. That resonated, that spoke to me. But everyone else just saying, you know, we are Swiss and we are there for 500 years and we do quality and craftsmanship. Nothing as boring as that. Yeah? So you need to have a good story. And then maybe, as to conclude that, the price. This is, I think, the biggest mistake that I see companies doing is to start with price first. And very often, I'm pretty sure you're also approached by this very often, you know, I get companies that come and then they say, you know, Daniel, can you help us in premiumizing? We want to premiumize our brand. And what do they think first? They think profit. They think we need higher price points. So this is why, and so now we have to help us to increase prices. And I don't really like that approach, because I always like to say, before we can increase prices, we have to be obsessive on value. In the end of the game, it's a value game. Yeah? It's the value of the brand. So before I can even think about price increases, I have to think, how can I dramatically increase the value of the brand? And the value of the brand I increase by tapping into the emotion of the buyers, by connecting it with a story, by keeping in mind the role of culture. And this brings me to touch points. I think one of you asked me, you know, how do you manage the touch points? And my short answer is, you have to manage each and every touch point, every time. This is where the biggest mistakes happen, is where only few touch points are managed well and then other touch points are neglected. You know, for me, the worst category is cars. These guys have no idea what luxury is. And I have a few car companies, they don't know what luxury is. They think luxury is in the product. What they don't understand, that luxury is in the human. So if I buy a car, let's say I go to the dealership, and the dealer is super nice selling me the car. And I drive a convertible, and recently I had an issue. I wanted to go to California with my car. I press the button, convertible roof doesn't open. So now I want to be one week, you know, driving along the ocean. This is why I bought the car, and this freaking roof doesn't open. So I go to the dealer, and then he said, "Oh, Daniel, you know, probably it's not a big deal, but we can get you in 3 weeks." I say, "I'm driving to California tomorrow. You guys cannot." I said, "This is for sure just a reset that needs to be done." "Yeah, in 3 weeks you can come back." So I will never forgive them this. And I don't know if I'm going to buy the same brand another time. Yeah. And you know, nothing, when they try to sell you the car, super nice. But then you need something afterwards, forget. And again, we are humans. We will forget. We will not forget these things. And so always keep in mind that when you want to do luxury, think about creating extreme value, and think about the client as at the center. The client is at the center, and we basically have to build an ecosystem of value around the client. And this has to be at every touch point. It doesn't matter, you know, if this is a seemingly small thing. fundamentally for us humans, there are no seemingly small things. Because it's about us. Always remember, we pay this because it's the anticipation of our own perception shift. It's not about the product. So if at one touch point I don't feel at the center, it doesn't matter which touch point it is, I will never forgive them. You know, again, last anecdote around this topic. Totally stupid, but we had a part last year, Super Bowl. So Super Bowl was in Phoenix, biggest sport event in the US, and like 1 million people in town, like absolute crazy town. So now we have a couple of friends over, and a good friend of mine also came with his wife works for Nike, so she brought him with us. So in the end we said, let's go for dinner somewhere, and then we couldn't find a restaurant. Because it was everything, like you can imagine, 1 million people in town, so everything was booked. So we decided, okay, we make dinner party at our house. So my wife cooks, everyone comes over. We were well stocked with wines, so we have, everyone had far too much wine in that evening. And then we find out we all basically drive the same car brand, so all Porsche drivers. So, and then one of my friends said, Daniel, can you show us the magazine? I said, which magazine? He said, what do you talk about? The magazine that they send to all of us. And then my other friend, yeah, I get the magazine every month. Yeah, the next one, okay, I get this magazine every month. And I said, I don't have a magazine. And I can probably find somewhere in my phone the message that I sent to my sales lady at 3 o'clock in the morning. I was furious. I said, Meredith, how can it be that I have friends over, we all talk Porsche, and I'm the only stupid person that all my friends are laughing about me because I don't have the magazine? How can it be? I said, I'm so angry, I don't want to drive this car anymore. And maybe this is an exaggeration, but this is how I felt in that moment. Because I have now all my friends around, and they want to see that, and I'm the only one, seemingly, that the brand decided not to send this magazine. So, and then I complained, and then she said, I'm so sorry, I don't know, this must have been a mistake on our end. We can send this magazine we always send it to our clients for 2 years, so we can send it still for 4 months to you. So I said, don't even bother sending me. You know, if you start like this, better not to do. Better not to do. And that is the thing, that a lot of companies now have to weigh, where do you start and where do you cut off, and then maybe a magazine is also, cost a little bit production cost, they have to ship it and so on. But, now imagine you have a customer, and the customer now gets this magazine every month, loves the magazine maybe. In my case, sometimes I don't even read them, just put them on the pile because I don't have the time to read them. But okay, I love that they come in. And now, because after 2 years or 3 years you have not bought something, now they stop sending you. How do you feel? It feels terrible. It feels like you are not valued anymore by the brand. So always think about all these touch points. This is where I call, and maybe this in closing of today, if you create extreme value for your clients and you do everything right, one thing I can guarantee that is going to happen is they will be in love with you. And I've been publishing quite a lot about this analogy between luxury and a love relationship. To me, it's very similar what is happening. So because we create so much value, they fall in love with the brand. And literally, and I think, probably you have used the term yourself, but I hear this all the time when we interview people that I'm in love with Chanel, I'm in love with Louis Vuitton, I'm in love with this brand, and so on. And so now words matter. So if they say they're in love, and if everything they do seems that they're in love, and if they feel a very strong emotional response, so much that they pay enormous premiums. So now we are in a relationship. And it's ours as the makers. And I think this was another question I think that came, how do we have to treat from an internal perspective this? So as a maker of a luxury item, we are responsible for this love relationship. If we had not done such a great job at some point, people would not have been in love with us. So we are to blame. We are to blame, not them. They couldn't help falling in love. So, but now we better treat them like we are in the same relationship. Because if the client's now in love with us, and they feel that from our end it's transactional. You know, the love only comes as long as I pay. That doesn't feel right. That would not feel right in a romantic relationship, and it doesn't feel right in a relationship that you have with a brand. So this is why so often the very small things, they matter most. Because the small things is sometimes and moments when you feel vulnerable. And when you're feeling vulnerable is when something doesn't work. Or I don't know, there's a quality issue. Talk about quality and craftsmanship. So now I bought this beautiful thing, it rained, and the leather, something happens with the leather, or whatever it is, my convertible roof doesn't open. What now? Because now we are in a relationship, and now we feel in the moment that really counts, where we needed the help of the other, now we feel neglected. And when we feel neglected, then what's going to happen at some point? It's over. It's a breakup. Then they will break up with us. And maybe for all of you on the Zoom and here in the room, reflect maybe on one of your experiences that you had in your life when you broke up with a brand. Whether it's luxury or not, doesn't matter. But something that was valuable for you, something that was really important for you in that moment, and then whatever it was, the brand messed up. I guarantee you, even years later, you will still remember the feeling. It will never stop. You will always remember the anger in that moment. Yeah? And you will always tell your friends, if a friend did it wrong, then your clients are not going to forgive you. And that's a bit the balance that we have to manage.
Guys,
all right,
yes,
thank you
stop.
so much.
Yes, stop. We won't get the last order to close. Huh? They're already texting us now, getting ready to do.
Super.
Please do your last bit.
Thank you so much, guys. Absolutely.
That was wonderful.
Thank you.
I'd just like to take a moment to express sincere gratitude to Mr. Daniel Langer for graciously taking time out of his busy schedule and guiding us today. Your invaluable insights in the luxury sector have helped us gain deeper knowledge and renewed our passion and vision towards approaching our careers. On behalf of everyone at LCBS, we thank you again for your time, wisdom, and dedication for supporting the young generation.
Absolutely.
The future luxury professionals. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Daniel, they want to give you a small gift card.
Oh, thank you. Oh, super. Thank you.